Hey, what's up guys? Today we're going to do an install on my BRZ, and basically what we're going to do is we're going to take a toggle switch, we're going to stick it in my remote wire so I can turn the sub off and on, and I'm basically going to show you how I do that, how I go about it, some little things that you may or may not know about subwoofers, especially with more OEM parts, and how to take off all the panels specifically for the BRZ. Mine's a 2016 BRZ Limited. I'm sure it applies to the same for the FRS and stuff, as long as you have the same style of paneling. In my trunk here you can see we got an amp, and basically what we're gonna do, we got the switch right here already installed so that I can turn it on and off, but we're gonna install this in the actual paneling. I know you should really solder this if you're good and stuff, but hey, you know, why not? Anyways, what this does is your remote wire is what tells your amplifier to turn on. So when you stick a switch like this in and you turn this off, there's no way for the power to get through, therefore the amp thinks it's off. So you can turn off and on the sub, and say you had two of them and you only want one to run. That's exactly one way you can do it. Another thing that some people don't know about, with OEM head units, you usually don't have a remote wire. So what you can do is you run it from your remote, which is right here, and you go straight to your power that way, but it's always going to be on, so you'll have to have a switch, otherwise this is always going to be on and eventually it will drain your battery. I've had friends just roast their battery because of it. I'm going to show you now what we're going to do with that switch. So right here you got this little extra space, and I thought that'd be a great place to stick a little switch. You know, I mean, what else goes there? Why is there a big blank spot? Stick a little one in there. Specifically, the toggle switch I have has a blue LED in it. My interior lighting is blue on my car, so I thought it would go great. Plus, you know, the Subaru color is blue. I have seen red, or you can just get a normal, easy toggle switch. That's what I stuck in my friend's car. This is where I first learned about the idea and thought about, hey, you know, if you want to be able to turn it off. The reason she did it was because every now and then her grandpa drove her car to work and stuff. Well, she drove his truck. For like carrying when she was pulling horses and trailers and stuff. Okay, so in the BRZ, if you don't have a BRZ and you're looking at this video trying to figure it out, you just need to figure out where you want your switch. We already know, and now we need to figure out how to get this piece out. I've already gone ahead and looked, and you got your panel right here. You take this, open my door a little more. There's a little hole in the bottom. You stick your finger in that, you pull, and then once you get it up, pull this side out because it is wedged in there a little bit. I mean, be scared of breaking stuff, but don't be that scared that you don't do it. You have a screw here. I've already partly taken it out just for ease of the video. That one's gonna come out. I set it on the floor on the side they came from. Up here, here's gas pedal, here's your transmission, I guess, I don't know. Anyways, that's where that other bolt comes from. Now you have a couple pop clips. You can actually see one right here, and there's like 4 of them, I believe. So all you're going to do is reach in there and you're going to pull. Like I said, be scared of breaking stuff so that you don't just slaughter it. You got to be a little aggressive with it, otherwise it isn't going to come off. Don't pull too hard either. You still have those wires connected, don't forget about that. Okay, now as you can see on this panel, this is where my trunk button and everything is. There's all these switches, and there's these tabs right here and right here, and then a couple on the bottom that you can't really see. You can see a little bit there. Those are what we're going to need to take off to get that out. Alright, so on these there are 4 little tabs. There's one on this side, there's one on that side of that one, and this one's on this side. You gotta push those in. If you're having troubles, use a screwdriver. I have already taken them out enough that I can pop them loose without having to push the tab. I've just disengaged that tab. So now this piece is completely free. Now we have access to these tabs that we need to pop off now. Okay, once you have popped all of those tabs, there was 5 together, then it simply just slides right out the bottom, and you can throw that piece aside, and now you're left with this. Now is when we're going to start marking the hole, figuring out where it needs to be on the back. And then we get to cutting. Okay, on this step there's going to be a couple of things that could differ depending on how you've already set it up. Here I have my remote wire run to an ADA circuit. I will show you in just a second. So that's how I get my power to my amp without it constantly draining my battery. If you have it run, like I said earlier before, from the remote to the power, obviously you want to disconnect the power first so that it can't ground off anything. And if you already bought the switch and you're just barely getting to this step, then great, you don't have anything to disconnect. Okay, as you can see, I actually have two add circuits. One of them runs to my underglow. This one right here, I looked at my diagram. This is just the fuse box right next to where the steering wheel is. You follow it down. This is the radio, and it was a 7.5 amp fuse. Subaru, I don't know if it's all their cars or just mine, have the little mini fuse. So the ones that come with it, there is a 7.5 amp that you use. You can't use the factory one, at least with the adapter that I got. Then you stick a new fuse in. I didn't know really which one to stick in. There was no information about, because you don't actually add a fuse to it. It runs straight to the head unit, but I don't have an aftermarket one. And then that comes off to a little wire. There's a little crimp on it down here. And then you just crimp your remote wire into that. So then as this fuse would light up normally with my radio turning on, it also runs the remote wire. So that's the one way to get around it without the aftermarket head unit. As you can see, I'm still OEM. How I was talking about running the power earlier, I'm going to be safe. I'm going to disconnect this fuse. Now there's no power that can run to it through the remote wire at least. So I'm safe to remove those wires. About the focus, guys, too, I'm using just an iPhone. I don't have a fancy camera. I just wanted to, I haven't seen any videos explaining how to do anything like this, so I thought I'd share my input. So when you get to this step, if you have a brand new one, great, you're kind of where I am. If not, what you might have just done if you were doing what I did, I had just cut these in half so I didn't have to deal with it. Now I'm just gonna cut this and then strip it and stick that back in the remote, just like you would if you were doing this from a normal standpoint. I don't know, not adding switches and fun stuff. Hey guys, if you paid attention to anything in this video, this is the one step that you don't want to mess up, because if you do, then you're gonna have to buy a new plastic piece. First of all, you want to make sure that in this blank spot over here, wherever you're going to stick your toggle switch, that obviously make sure it fits. So in this one, what we're going to do, if you notice on the front, it's quite a big area. That's good, and it fits great. There's no space issues. It's wide enough, it's tall enough, that's fine. When you look at the back, that's when you realize that you have much less room than you thought you did because of these clips. So what we're going to do, we're going to set it in there, and yeah, it still fits just fine in those clips. Now we got to figure out how to mark it so we can cut it out. One thing to remember, when you hold this up to create a template, if that's the way that you choose to do it, that's how I'm going to do it. This outer rim is not the actual size that you are going to cut out. If you look, there's a slight edge, and what that does is so it creates kind of a frame for the button. You need to make sure that you're cutting out the size of this interior piece big enough that it fits, but not big enough that this will fit through it. That's what's going to keep it in place with these tabs. So what I did here is I just set this in here about the space that I thought it would be, and then I made sure that the edges were parallel so that when you look at it from the other side, you know, it's not a box. Would you want it to be parallel with the slanted edge or parallel with the button? I prefer the button, so that's the way that I went with it. So I made sure that I was fairly close with this. Now I'm going to go ahead and measure this, but again, how I was saying, you got to measure the width of it, not including that extra casing. And if you look here, mine is 7/16, so now I'm going to mark this 7/16 back, and just in a couple places and draw a line. That'll give me a good idea, and then I'll figure out the height. Okay, now I've marked both sides here and here. Now I just need to think where the center is and such, figure that out so that I know how far up and how far down. Basically, you don't need to be perfect, but you need to be precise. Again, your main concern is making this not too small. It's better to make it small. You can always take more away, but don't make it too big that switch doesn't fit. Okay, what I did for this step, I went and measured this, and I got the length of this, and then I noticed that this button is fairly close to the same size, and this was 1 1/16. This was 1 3/8. Now I take the difference and divide it by 2, and I know how much to come down from the top of this ledge. And again, always set it back in to make sure that it looks right. I'm ready to tackle the next step. I got my square and I've measured it just by eyeballing it, using my itometer to make sure that this toggle switch fits. So what we're gonna do now, I use a scroll saw for wood a lot, so I'm gonna use that same kind of method. I'm gonna drill in the four corners very carefully with a fairly small drill bit, and that's gonna do two things. One, I'm gonna have a spot to stick the saw through. You can always use a Dremel and just punch a hole through it and then just slowly eat it away. And then two, if I'm careful enough, I'll have a very small round corner instead of having a sharp square corner. And if I can make it all fit, it'll be much cleaner. I just took this out so it fit flush on my scroll saw without getting stuff in it. There's just two little tabs here to pop these out, same with this. Like I said, I got my corners drilled. I actually drilled the bigger one to fit the saw blade a little better. And this is, I'm gonna scroll saw it, set this in here. I'm gonna cut out that little rectangle very carefully. Like I said, if you don't have access to these kind of tools, a Dremel, or possibly even if you have one of those little teeny, I believe they're called coping saws, basically one of these, it's a handheld one. Just something to get that out. Heck, if you even have the time, you can probably scrape it with a razor blade long enough that it'll cut eventually through. I will be showing you a trick a little bit later using razor blades and plastic that you may or may not need to use. Okay, so now I've got it all cut out and I've got the plug in it, and you notice it doesn't quite fit. But if you hold it up with something with the sunlight, this is just my floor, you can see where the light bleeds through. Where it doesn't is where you need to cut. Simple. This is the tip I was talking about with the razor blade. I'm just using a knife, but if you take this and you drag it along gently, slightly at an angle, you don't want to cut in, otherwise you can dig, but if you drag it backwards, you can clean up your edges and all the little burrs. Really nice. I've learned this through dirt bikes. Taking some plastic pieces off that, like, or enlarging holes and stuff. You can see there's a little bit of shavings on there that appear. And remember, don't cut in, pull back, but just nice gently, just to take off the little burrs and such. Now that we see that it fits in, now's a great time to test it out and make sure that if you're weird like me, you know which one's off, because I want it to be off. I want it to be at an angle with this down, so when I turn it on, that's flipped up. As you can see, it's all hooked up, and I have that just resting there for now, and we're just going to test it. That little triangle should light up, and it does, so that means the switch is good. Alright, and as you can see, I'll show you one more time. There's no gaps or anything, cleaned up nice, switch works well. One thing to note, whereas I did this all so we could piece together, if you're doing this all hardwire and soldering to that, then you make sure that this goes in before, or that you can take the switch out somehow, because, well, this has to go into that piece before you can put all that through. Alright, so here's what we're going on. I got red running to the power wire that runs to that add circuit. I just put red tape, totally unnecessary, but it's easy for quick reference. My ground, it goes to that bolt right up there. That's also where my underglow. And then this is just the plain remote wire. And as you can see, this is off. When you turn it on, it'll light up. You can also hear the sub more now. So as you can see, that turns that on and on. Just with the flip of a switch. The idea is working, so that's good. Now we just gotta put it all back together. But yeah, there you have it. It's a super easy install. I quite enjoyed doing it. But always remember, if you do, try and take my advice from this video, or build it, or take your own spin on it. Just remember, doing anything to your car does have a possibility of something going wrong, especially when you're working with electrical. That fires could be a problem, so do it at your own risk. I'm not responsible for anything you do. This is just more of just showing you how I did it, because when I was looking for videos, no one else had a video like this really that I could find. And so I hope you enjoyed some of these tips and tricks, and maybe have some fun and post some results of what you guys did. Thanks.